my God, what the hell just happened in this race? 31 laps past the scheduled distance, 5 overtimes. Hell, half the field, I think, ran out of fuel. And Joey Logano somehow, someway ends up victorious here today and locks himself into the playoffs. I am in shock by that race. I mean, the first two stages was pretty calm. Then after the rain delay and we began stage 3, everything just went off the rails, I tell you. Wow. We have so much to talk about. There's a lot of things I am pissed at, specifically NASCAR. We'll get into all of that, but unbelievable. On the final overtime restart, so much carnage took place. You had, I think, 2 or 3 different drivers crash. Mark Truex Jr., Daniel Suarez, they crashed. I think another driver, Chase Elliott, he spun at the front straightaway. And Tyler Reddick, who had an incredible final 2 laps, drove his way, I think, from the 6th or 7th position on the outside lane, got up to 2nd on the final lap. But Logano, with incredible blocking, was able to hold off Reddick to win here at Nashville for his first win of 2024 and snaps a 50 race winless streak. The last time he went to victory lane was all the way back in the spring Atlanta race last year. But like I said, most importantly, is locked into the playoffs. Let's take a look at the results here. Then we're going to explain what happened in this race because so much happened. So Joey Logano wins. Zane Smith, yes, Zane Smith in 2nd place. He started 33rd. Tyler Reddick in 3rd. Ryan Preece in 4th. I mean, look at this top 10. I mean, look at these drivers. Ryan Blaney, who was a lap down with just a handful of laps to go, somehow rebounds to 6th. Bubba Wallace, who was outside the top 30 for majority of stage 3, he finishes 7th. Larson in 8th. With the race he had, you're surprised he finished 8th. And look at the top 10. Daniel Hemrick in 9th. He started 37th. He started 2nd to last. And Noah Gragson in 10th. Allmendinger 11th. Denny Hamlin, who ran out of fuel, somehow rebounded to 12th. Haley in 13th, and that man had a pass-through penalty to start the race. He was a lap down before stage 1 ended and finished 13th. Alex Bowman in 14th. He ran out of fuel on the final lap, I think. Austin Cindric, who crashed right before the first overtime finish. Carson Hocevar, Todd Gilliland, Chase Elliott, who spun twice, like I said. Byron, who had a crash earlier on. And Corey LaJoie, the top 20. Briscoe, who was 2nd at the final overtime line, runs out of gas, finishes 21st. Suarez and Truex, like I mentioned, they're involved in a crash. Gibbs had damage on the final lap as well, I believe. Brad Keselowski was involved in a crash. Barry was involved in a crash. Busch ran out of fuel. Harrison Burton, Corey Hyman, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., the top 30, with John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Dillon, Ross Chastain, Eric Jones, Michael McDowell, Christopher Bell, Riley Herbst, and Chad Fincham. All the drivers that I mentioned, aside from Riley Herbst and Chad Fincham, were involved in were involved in 2 big crashes that happened late in the race. Now, let's take a look at the playoff grid because things changed massively with Logano's win. He was just, I believe, 13 points below the cut line, but with this win, he is now, like I said, locked into the playoffs, the 11th driver in, but look at what it does to the cut line. Bubba Wallace was minus 13. Now he's minus 51 points below the cut line, ahead of Alex Bowman, who now holds the final spot. Chris Buescher plus 56. They're the only 2 drivers within that 1 race gap. Truex Jr. almost has about a 3 race gap, it seems, plus 143. Gibbs plus 70 and Chastain plus 66. Briscoe minus 78. Busch minus 104 and Josh Berry now minus 131. At the moment right now, Bubba Wallace is the only driver below the cut line that can point his way in next week in Chicago, but that is going to be so difficult to do. I need a drink. Oh my God. I forgot how many cautions were in this race, but it's around 18 to 20 yellows. And I think this is actually the first time NASCAR has gone into 5 overtimes, I think. This is the longest because it was scheduled for 300 laps and we went to 331. I mean, what in the world? Here's the thing. The first 2 stages was actually pretty calm. Christopher Bell swept the stages. There was some interesting strategy going on with Michael McDowell that was trying to stay out, trying to, stretch the fuel mileage. There were some pretty interesting moments, but it was fairly calm. It was a calm race. Then we had a rain delay, about an hour, 20-minute rain delay due to rain in the area. Got back to racing. But once stage 3 began, it's like everyone just turned their brains off. I mean, lap 218, Chase Elliott spuns off a 4 from the 6th place, goes through the grass. 10 laps later on a restart, Christopher Bell, who, like I said, swept the stages, had one of the fastest cars, into the wall from 15th after getting loose, checking up, and he makes hard contact with the outside wall out of the race. Lap 242, Brad Keselowski crosses the nose of Austin Dillon, and he spins from the 16th position in turn 2 and backs it into the wall. And then you had even under yellow, Carson Hocevar just hooks Harrison Burton on the back straightaway under caution, which I don't know why he did that. That was very stupid of Hocevar, and he should have gotten a penalty for that. I don't know why he wasn't given a penalty for that, but Hocevar, he has been doing so well, but reverted back to Phoenix a couple years ago, I think, when he just dumped Corey Heim. Absolutely unprofessional by Carson Hocevar. And then we start to get real calm in this situation after that moment. And there was very interesting strategies going on. Ryan Blaney, who pitted on lap 188, was trying to stretch it, even though we all knew he couldn't make it. He finally pitted with 32 laps to go, forfeiting the lead, giving it to Ross Chastain. But Denny Hamlin had much fresher tires and had a faster car, and he ran down Chastain. Chastain tried his best to hold off Hamlin, had some pretty close moments, but entering turn 1, Chastain lost it. Hamlin got into his inside. Hamlin took the lead. If you notice in that clip, that happened in the daytime. That still happened around sunset. Then with Hamlin just about a turn away from taking the white flag, caution comes out for Austin Cindric spinning on the back straightaway. That caution was warranted, but boy, did that cause some incredible chaos. The first overtime, Larson clips the apron and his Chastain, collecting Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, Byron, Nemechek, Reddick, and more were involved. The reason why I think Larson clipped the apron was because he was trying to hit Denny Hamlin. The reason why was because near the end of stage 2, Hamlin and Larson once again made contact. Larson on the final lap, I believe, pushed Hamlin up the racetrack to take the position away. And then after the stage 2 ended under yellow, Hamlin came up and just, gave a little bump to Larson. So I think Larson was not too happy with Hamlin, and Larson tried to get back at Hamlin, but completely missed and just wiped out Chastain. Here's the interesting thing about this. I talk about Kyle Busch. Busch, even though he wasn't necessarily involved, he still checked up and lost a lot of speed. So tell me why, when the second overtime happened, he's back up in 4th place. Even the broadcast, even Jeff Byrne was saying that's ridiculous. And then another caution came out during overtime. A big one on the back straightaway. Ryan Preece got into, I think, Corey Heim or another driver, and it caused a melee. I mean, you had 10, 11 cars were involved in the back straightaway. But after that, NBC then went back to the previous restart where Larson hit Chastain and was saying, yo, NASCAR, why is Kyle Busch back in 4th place? And it made no sense because the rule states that if you don't maintain speed, you lose your spot, you lose your position, even if you were an innocent bystander. If you slow down at the moment of caution where you position with the loop and all that, that's where you start. There was no reason that Kyle Busch should have been 4th when the second overtime happened, because by the time the caution came out, he was in mid-pack, 12th, 15th place around that area. There was no reason why Busch should have gotten his spot back in 4th place. He lost it. Why NASCAR gave it back to him, I have no idea. I mean, I'm gonna put on my conspiracy hat here for a second, but I don't know if it's just because, Kyle Busch, big name, trying to continue his streak of winning a race per year. It would have been 20 had he won today. 20 years in a row, he won at least one race in the Cup Series. I don't know, but it made absolutely no sense for him to gain his spot back when he clearly lost it. And I would love to hear an explanation from NASCAR as to why that happened. But yeah, that was the second overtime. We got into overtime number 3. Larson runs out of fuel or has some type of issue, gets hit by Busch. Then Chase Elliott hits Busch. Busch spins. He goes around, out of fuel, another caution. And man, you got to feel for Kyle Busch because Kyle Busch was making some awesome moves, like on the outside, taking it 3 wide on the last few laps of the scheduled distance. I mean, he was making some great moves. So this was a race where he had a fast car. And it was around this time where everyone was dangerously close on fuel. Hamlin was close. Truex was close. I'm pretty sure the top 20 was close, aside from a couple drivers like Bubba Wallace, I think Ty Gibbs, and a couple others, or not Ty Gibbs, I think Tyler Reddick. I should say that pitted after the first overtime yellow, we saw a couple drivers like Bubba Wallace come on a pit road, especially because they were out of fuel. They pitted a few laps later than Blaney did, right before, that whole shit show happened with the overtime finishes. But yeah, they didn't have enough fuel for multiple overtime runs. Hamlin, who we all thought, oh, he's safe, he's good because he had the freshest tires, he had the most amount of fuel out of anyone when he passed Chastain. But with all those overtime yellows, He runs out of fuel. Him and Hamlin and Truex, they had to pay. They had to give up first and second place because we were going to 3 overtime finishes now. So because they went to the back, now all of a sudden you have drivers like Logano, Briscoe, Smith, all these drivers now up front. LaJoy also up front. We go into overtime number 4. Elliott runs out of gas. Logano pushes Briscoe up the racetrack to take the lead, but then Josh Berry spins and crashes at the back. Another caution, and that brought us to the 5th overtime, and that's how Logano was able to win. The interesting part about this is that Briscoe, who ran out of fuel, pitted 3 laps earlier, or I should say 3 laps later, I should say, than Logano, yet Briscoe ran out of fuel and Logano didn't. So it was a masterful job by Logano for not only being able to block, but also being able to maintain his fuel. Did a great job fuel saving and holding off the drivers in the pack, especially Tyler Reddick, because he came in like a bat out of hell to take that, went from 6th to 2nd. Incredible job. But this race was an absolute mess. If I'm all over the place, that's because this race was all over the place. And I'm talking so much, but oh my God. Wow. It was an unreal race. Like I mentioned, with 2 to go, the race was sunset. By the time we finished, it was nighttime. I mean, it was completely just utter chaos, seeing so many drivers run out of fuel. Drivers that we thought were safe ran out of fuel. I mean, and like I mentioned, you look at some of the drivers. I mean, Logano, yeah, but Briscoe was up there. Zane Smith, 2nd place. I mean, just imagine a driver that was what? Outside the top 13 points, won. He would have been in the playoffs. I mean, yeah. This race was all over the place. I would say from an entertaining standpoint, this was fun. It was 10 out of 10 on an entertaining standpoint. But from a race, I got to give it like a 6 or 7. Stage 3 was good up until we got into the overtime. Then it just became complete chaos. Very annoyed though by how NASCAR officiated that race, because the main point is because of Busch getting a spot back. Again, I have no idea why Busch got a spot back, because it made 0 sense considering the situation he was in. And then to get dumped just a couple laps later, it's like, oh man, we lost our spot. Hey, NASCAR, we'll give you a pass. Nope, run out of fuel. Get sent to the back again. But I do think we do need a serious discussion on how these races end. And I know it's been a rule for a while with the unlimited overtimes, but I really do think we need to keep at a max of 3, because it was too much. Like after the 3rd overtime, it was like, all right, like this is getting ridiculous. And I really do think that NASCAR should make a rule, whether make it next year or make it now, I don't know. But we definitely do make a rule. I think that we needed to make a max of 3 overtime attempts. You don't want 1 overtime attempt? Fine, I get it. But 3 is the max. Do it like what we did back in the early to late 2010s, where we have 3 attempts at a green-white checker. That's what it should be here. Having unlimited overtime attempts, it just creates too much chaos, because unlimited overtime, the drivers are just going to take their brains and throw it out the window and just say, F it. Go all out, especially with how much tougher these next-gen cars. They're going to be do more pushing and shoving than ever. And when you have unlimited overtimes, it just creates more chaos. If you have 3 attempts, it really, I think, would really force the drivers to race more cleanly, because they were running all over each other. Even some of the drivers that had no issues with fuel, 2 or 3 times on that final overtime, we saw crash, we saw smoke. I don't know why NASCAR didn't throw the yellow then, but they threw it for Josh Berry, even though he was parked on the infield, like the inside wall of turns 3 and 4. But yeah, Truex spun. I think there was another driver that had smoke coming off. Like, I don't know. The way NASCAR officiated the overtimes really annoys me. But yeah, credit to Logano for winning that. How he managed to save that much fuel bogs my mind, because I mean, he had over 100 laps, I think, on a tank of fuel. Even with all the cautions, I was so shocked that he made it last that long to the finish. And yeah, and it, like I said, it flips a playoff grade now. I mean, you had a guy like Bubba Wallace, who I said he was going to be strong in practice. I said it, even though he was outside the top 30 for majority of the stage, but he finished 7th. You're thinking, all right, if you're the 23 team, oh yeah, you good points today. You got some points in stage 1. Nice. Oh, well, Logano won. Now, instead of maybe being 1 or 2 points below the cut line, you're nearly a full race below the cut line. You're 51 points below the cut line, and you're going to a street course next week, which we all know is not Bubba's forte. So yeah, at this rate, from the way it looks like it, anyone that's below the cut line has got to win. Bubba's got to win. Bush has got to win. Bristol's got to win. Barry. No longer, even though Bubba is within the 60-point range, with what's going to happen next week, and the fact that we're going to a street course, I think from this point onwards, with 7-6 races to go in the regular season, you have to win if you want to make it into the playoffs. Unless, Bowman and Buescher just have an incredible streak of bad luck these next few weeks, you're going to have to win if you want to be in the playoffs. And wow, I don't know what to say, but holy shit. That's all I can say. Holy shit. But what are your thoughts on this race? Let me know in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not? What are your thoughts on NASCAR, how they dealt with the overtime and the officiating? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on that. But man, next week is the Chicago street course. Oh my God, that is going to be wild. But I cannot wait for that. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.